What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to day 2 of the MLB playoffs here on Run Pure Sports DFS Swing for the Fences show. It's Wednesday morning, October 1st, and breaking down all 4 games with my guy, Statsational. Stats, how you doing on this Wednesday morning?
Doing all right, man. It's unusual doing the show early. I was not ready, but yeah, no, I got a lot of going on. Survivor. I'm working on Survivor pools and fantasy draft pickups and all of the sorts. So, but I'm ready, man. We got games in a couple hours, so they were good yesterday. I mean, all good games. Well, most of them were good games yesterday.
Yeah, fun games for the most part. The pitcher's duel with Detroit and Cleveland was pretty awesome. The 2 Ohtani bombs, man, really. Not that he needs to prove anything to anyone, but kind of putting a stamp on an incredible season.
He's going to be good, that guy. He's going to be good, I think, Ohtani.
Yeah, I think that Ohtani guy can play a little ball. Certainly a different slate than yesterday. Me and Boynton on the show yesterday for people watching, and, both of us kind of agreed there were a lot of different pitchers in play. Of course, it, doesn't always turn out that way that everybody crushes. But a different slate today. I think we could see more runs. That certainly reflected in the total. And a significantly weaker pitching pool today than we had yesterday. So we will see a little bit more condensed ownership on some of the, higher projected pitchers, and an interesting slate because, we do some slate stats where you don't have to sacrifice too much to get in a lot of the big bats. On this slate, it's tough. If you want the true sluggers, the Ohtanis of the world, you do have to make sacrifices some places. So really fun slate, awesome day for baseball fans, which, of course, everybody watching this show right now, I would presume, is a pretty big fan of the game. And I love these staggered starts. It opens up strategy implications later on in the slate for people doing well. Should be a really fun day of baseball. The exact same schedule, which I also like. The same 4 teams, obviously. 4 of these teams facing elimination today. Should be a fun slate. Got a couple lineups. We do have the early lineups for Tigers Guardians, and we will, of course, start there in Cleveland. It was Detroit that won the game yesterday, kind of in dramatic fashion. And we'll see if, we'll see how this game goes today. It could be a different story, a downgrade at pitcher, certainly for the Tigers, going with Casey Mize after Tarek Skubal put in a performance for the ages yesterday. They'll go with Mize today. Obviously, not nearly the caliber of pitcher that Skubal is, but he does have another good matchup. Both of these offensive stats leave a lot to be desired. Not a lot of great hitters on either team. It is pitching weather, pretty strong winds blowing in from center field at Progressive Field, which should help the pitchers some here. Cleveland will go with right-hander as well, Tanner Bybee, who, like many of the Cleveland pitchers, looked good down the stretch. Bybee, a talented guy who did pitch well. We did see his teammate, right-hander Gavin Williams, look very, very strong yesterday. We'll see if Bybee can back it up. Not quite the same pitcher that Williams is, but a similar style of pitcher anyway. And I do like his chances to pitch well. I don't think I'm getting to Casey Mize here, but he is cheap, $7,200. He does allow you to get in some of the bigger bats for people looking to stack the Dodgers, which, based on the projected ownership, a lot of people are going to want to do. When I last checked, we got Saber up here. I can pull it up, but yeah, if you look at the ownership on the Dodgers, Sabres currently got the top 6 highest owned players as Dodger bats. So we do know for sure that that's going to be the most popular stack of the day, which does, of course, make sense given how good they are as an offense, getting healthy, and then, of course, get a good matchup against Zach Littell and the Cincy bullpen. But we do start off in Detroit. Cleveland, as I mentioned, Bybee versus Mize. What do you see here, Stats, first game of the day?
Yeah, just on the overall, we've still got pretty low totals here for the most part. Team low game totals, low team totals, and obviously the Dodgers here. You can see it on Saber. the only team that's really projected to get over 5 runs. So understandable as why they'll be the highest owned of on the slate. Yankees are always going to be an option. The bats were silenced yesterday by Crochet, and then
Yeah.
made it a little interesting there in the ninth. Well, I guess a lot interesting in the ninth inning. But so those are going to be your two top options. I think there's a lot of ways you can go here with the pitching. I agree. Mize may not be near the top of my list. As a matter of fact, he's near the bottom of my list, but is a cost savings. We're not expecting a whole lot as far as in the way of runs in this game. You look at the betting markets. I'll start with Mize. Mize 4.5 Ks. They're looking at just 14.5 strikeouts, and he's heavily juiced to the under. So I think that's the big thing here. And you're going to get that in the postseason, right? So you're going to get two things. You're going to get the aces. You're going to get a Crochet who's going to go 8 innings when he's on, right? And then you're going to get the pitchers who are not the aces, who are going to be on a much shorter leash. So, we've become accustomed in today's MLB to these starting pitchers really don't go all that deep, and you're going to get pitchers not go as deep as maybe they would in the regular season in the postseason. So that is the danger with some of these pitchers. While the totals may be low, we may not necessarily get the amount of outs that we'd be looking for from a starting pitcher. So yeah, when you look at Mize, I think that's the risk here, is that we don't get him deep into the game. You look at Bybee, a little better here, 5.5 strikeouts on his prop. It is to the under on that juice. But again, he's only got 14.5 pitching outs. Conversely, it is heavily juiced to the over, but they're not really expecting either one of these guys in the betting markets to go all that deep. I do have Bybee as a much stronger option, however, on as far as my model goes. So I've got him as the number 2 choice. You mentioned the pricing, and we're going to maybe want to get some of these expensive bats. 7,700 on Bybee. I think that's going to push his ownership up a bit. You've got a few pitchers on here who do have on this slate with a little bit better K per inning number, but he's close to that 1 K per inning. Mize, of course, not really as good a strikeout pitcher. The walk rate on Bybee, pretty good as well. One of the best on this slate. So I think he's a strong option against this Tiger lineup. I like Bybee here as one of my top pitchers on the slate.
Yeah, I'm with you on Bybee. We see roughly 40% ownership per saver on Bybee, half of that on Casey Mize. I think I still prefer Bybee at the 40% than Mize at 20% personally. Obviously pretty close on the price. Guardians with, I believe, 8 lefties or switch hitters, 8 hitters who are going to hit from the left side against Mize, which I think could lead to a pretty quick hook. Again, most of these pitchers, like any trouble at all, right? And they could be out of the game. Obviously, the highest of stakes for these teams. But with all those lefties in the Guardians lineup, I do think it's Mize who's at the bigger risk for a very early hook. I mean, if it's not going well, right? If they're wild or they don't look good, even if they're not getting absolutely shelled, you could see very early exits for pitchers like Casey Mize. Bybee, I get it. He could be pulled early too. You see that in the outs prop that you mentioned. I do think if he's rolling well, I could see the Guardians letting him go fairly deep into the game, where even if Mize is pitching well, I think he could be out relatively early as the Tigers perhaps go to their bullpen. So give me Bybee over Casey Mize. Not a lot of super appealing bats in these lineups, a lot of pinch hit risk as well, but what are you looking at for hitters in the Guardians and Tigers matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. On the bats, I think, look, at some point you can't play all Dodgers, right? So we've got to kind of figure out who we want to, if we are going to play the Dodgers, who we want to put them with. You do have some options, I think, on this Cleveland side. I think Bo Naylor at the catcher, 3,300, is an interesting choice here. Does have some home run potential. Going to pay. I prefer looking for some cheaper options on these with the bats on these other teams. I mean, if you want to go to the Detroit side, Kerry Carpenter at 3,900 with a lot of pop in his bat as well. I'm looking at like 15-16% chance for a home run. On the higher end, Ramirez is probably your best option in this game with the stolen base probabilities and his home run potential. So I think from there, I would prefer, I'm going to basically be looking at most of these lineups here as secondary stacks, with the Dodgers being a primary, even the Yankees maybe as a primary stack. So we're looking at secondary stacks, and most of these teams are going to have two options here that I like, two or three. So Naylor and Ramirez for me on the Cleveland side. I like Carpenter on the Detroit side. I would say, you could go down even to Manzardo at first base there for Cleveland as well. If you're going to look for a cheap option, I think Parker Meadows was a guy I liked yesterday. I like him again here today. A little pop in the bat, some stolen base potential. So for at 2,800, I think he gives you some upside there as well for Meadows. So there's a few options in this game that I would go for, and they're going to be cheap. So we're going to be having to look for maybe cheaper secondary stacks to go with these expensive bats that we like.
Yeah, it makes sense. As I mentioned, a fair bit of pinch hit risk on both sides from the Tigers. Meadows, I think, is somewhat likely to come out of the game when the Guardians bring in a lefty. Carpenter, maybe. They did let him hit against the lefty yesterday, so we'll see on that. And then McKinstry down in the 8-hole, pretty good candidate to be pinch hit. Maybe early in this game if the Guardians do go to the bullpen early. I think the rest of this lineup should be safe. And then on the Guardian side, pinch hit risk as well. I do like Manzardo too, but somewhat of a candidate to come out early. Valera, 3,200. Again, he does have some pop, so he remains in play because on a 4-game slate with low totals, right? One swing of the bat, home run, and you're on the optimal pretty much. So not that you need to avoid those guys, but just be aware of that. And then two guys at the bottom of the lineup, Chase, DeLauder, who I don't think is even in the DraftKings pool. If that's correct. Yeah, I don't see.
I'm going to jump in for a second. It's just 4 games, right? So you're looking, typically we like to play like a 5-man main stack. I mean, I do for the most part, all 5-2, 5-3s. But with 4 games, you can mix this up. We don't have to play 5-man stacks either. So just keep that in mind. We could be doing, 4 3s, 4 4s, things, similar to what we would do on a FanDuel. So you don't necessarily have to take 5 Dodgers or any of these teams at that. So I would mix it up a bit here with your lineup construction.
Yeah, me and Boyden talked a lot about that yesterday. The fewer the amount of games, the more that, one home run or just a couple hits in the stolen base, and that can be enough. So obviously during the regular season, you get 8, 10, 12 game slates. Most good players playing 5-man stacks. You don't have to do that here. You mentioned the 4v4s. I think you can even take it a little bit farther in some instances because, any pitcher that you don't have, presumably someone's doing damage against them if they're not pitching well. If you can pick out the right one or two. We have seen in the past in these playoff slates, a lot of the winning lineups are not full stacks. Obviously, the Dodgers did some damage last night, so they got there. But a lot of different ways to play these 4-game slates with, it's a little bit of a different game with all the quick pitching hooks and all that stuff and the shorter slate. So good point there. I think important to point that out again. I think with that, we can move on to the next game on the slate. It is the Padres and the Cubs back in Wrigley Field. Wind blowing in here too. Should be warm though, so it won't play too bad in Wrigley Field as we sometimes see when the wind's blowing in. So a little bit slanted toward the pitching, but again, not the worst place to hit in Wrigley Field. Looks like the Cubs are going to go with Andrew Kittredge to open the game. I'm not sure that's 100% confirmed. I'm not even sure what the rules are on having to declare that, but that's what's listed right now. Kittredge going to be out there probably for 1 inning. He's gone exactly 1 inning in, I think, 8 straight outings. So it should be 1 inning from the right-hander Kittredge. I assume that's because 2 righties, Tatis and Machado, presumably in the top 3. So try to get Kittredge through the first inning. Then it'll be Shota Imanaga after him. He's been pretty shaky. It's been, a month and a half since he's put up even a 20 fantasy point game. And the fact that they're going with the opener makes me a little concerned on what the Cubs expect from Imanaga here. Imanaga coming in at 7,500. So a reasonable price point for him, but a tough strikeout matchup, as always, against the Padres. And then Dylan Cease going for the Padres here. Always a high upside pitcher, gets the strikeouts. He is a pitcher I think the Padres will let go deep into the game if it's going well for Cease, which, by no means a guarantee, but I kind of put him in the Bybee group where there's potential, I think, for 6 innings out of Dylan Cease. Obviously, the strikeouts could come against the Cubs. I think I'm off these Cub pitchers entirely. I mean, you're not going to play Kittredge, I don't think. And then Imanaga, I've got concerns about. So it would be Dylan Cease, the pitcher that I'm looking at in this game for the most part. And then I think this game could be a decent one for offense. A low-scoring game yesterday, but we could see that change a little bit. You can run on Dylan Cease as well, who is wild. The Cubs do have a decent amount of speed in that lineup. I think like 7 of their hitters could run in this game. So maybe the Cubs get going on the base paths here, which, especially on a 4-game slate where we don't expect a ton of home runs, those stolen bases, you get 1 or 2 of those. That's probably enough to get you on the optimal team, or close to it anyway. So I like the Cubs side here a little bit against Cease. I think they'll be somewhat contrarian as we go to the ownership on these guys. Looking like the Cubs, 10% or below. I think they're a good contrarian stack. Looks like the Padres will be higher owned, which I get it. But given roughly half the ownership, it looks like, with the Cubs, I do kind of lean that side of the ball in this one. What about you, Stats? What do you see in between the Padres and the Cubs here?
Yeah, I mean, in the betting markets, on Pinnacle, they don't even have any props yet on Imanaga. So, the question there, I think you were mentioning like what the rules are on that. I think it's more of a courtesy that you kind of let the opposing team know with a reasonable amount of time so that they can make a lineup up as far as who you're going to be starting. But I don't think there's any rule until basically they hand those lineup sheets over to the umpires prior to the game as to what officially your lineup is. But so we may be waiting a while here for the lineups from both of these teams before we get starting lineups. But Cease in the betting markets, 5.5 Ks. That is juice to the over. Again, 14.5 outs, heavy juice to the under. You're going to start seeing, you're going to see that in the postseason, as we mentioned, because these guys are going to have short leashes. I've got Cease right in the middle on this slate. I've got him as the I've got him as the fourth pitcher, which would be kind of middle of the pack here. Certainly a decent option. He's probably got the best upside as far as strikeouts go. I mean, if he's on a roll here, I mean, the reason the projections are going to be kind of capped a bit is because of that outs and how deep they expect to go in the game. But certainly Cease has the ability and the strikeout potential to get as deep into the game with a lot of strikeouts in a good environment for pitching. So I think you do have a bunch of upside, maybe some of the better upside on the slate at 8,300. So I do like Cease a bit. You mentioned the bats in this game. Of course, there's just not a whole lot in the way of team totals, and we've got to go somewhere. So you mentioned stolen bases. I think that's a really good point. If you're going to be contrarian and get on the Cubs side, that's going to be very strong leverage against Cease, because Cease will get some ownership here. So I don't mind that at all. Certainly San Diego is going to get the higher ownership as Saber is projecting. But if you're looking at the Chicago side, I like what you said there, and they're still popping those bats too. I mean, PCA obviously can hit home runs, but a large threat for stolen bases. Tucker can steal bases as well with pop. Even some of the guys with really no pop in this lineup, or I don't want to say no pop, but the lower amount of projected home runs, a Horner, a Shaw, those guys can all steal bases for the Cubs. So you're right, in a slate where it's just 4 games, if we get a lot of low-scoring games, perhaps, and they're in that environment there where they may be looking to run, knowing that it's it's not a good hitting environment, low-scoring game, maybe manufacture some runs, maybe you get some stolen bases here. So I don't mind that play as a contrarian play, and get yourself a little leverage taking the Cubs. If you like San Diego, of course, Tatis Machado, expensive bats, they're going to be right at the top of the list. And I don't like a ton of the other San Diego bats, which is interesting. I mean, you can get cheap on Furman, but I don't think he gives you enough there at the play. I mean, it's a total punt option at catcher, but if you're going to do it, but I don't really love what his potential is to give us as far as fantasy numbers go. So I don't like a lot of these San Diego bats, interestingly enough. I think the top bats are the San Diego ones, but I think overall, I kind of like taking the Cubs here as a contrarian play.
Yeah, we see this game similarly. I do think Cease versus the Cubs is one I want to play both sides of, right? Because you have the strikeout upside with Cease. You also have, again, the outs projection is not the best for Cease, but that's looking at kind of the median result, whereas the high-end result for Cease, I do think, is still there. One choice I think a lot of people are going to have to make stats is between Cease and Bybee, who have somewhat similar price points and somewhat similar ownerships. You have a preference between those two for people making, just a few lineups on this slate? Cease and Bybee, do you have a strong lean either direction?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's strong. I do like Bybee a bit better. I mean, if those were my two options there, but yeah, I think there is good GPP potential here from a Dylan Cease on the slate.
No, this AJ guy, not a fan of you stats.
No, he hates me. I mean, maybe I just won't do the shows anymore.
Look at us. We're up at the ass crack of dawn here on Wednesday morning talking about.
Well, I've been up for a while. I'm on the East Coast. So
it's 9:30 here. It's not that early.
You're a mountain
exaggerating for dramatic effect there, but yeah, I do like Cease, but I do think this Cubs team with the speed, like you mentioned, I think they'll get going on the base paths today, given what looks like a relatively difficult slate to score runs. So I do agree with you. The Cubs stack, I think, is interesting because Cease can get wild. We talked about the speed. I do think that this Cubs stack could get there as a 5-man stack. Again, you don't have to fully stack, but if I am, the Cubs pretty high on my list, and also like almost no pinch hit risk at all from this Cubs team, which you can't say for most of these teams. So they make sense to me as a contrarian 5-man stack. Any individual bats on the Padres standing out to you? I do like Jackson Merrill. Looks like he's projected to hit cleanup in this game, had a strong end of the season, can kind of do a little bit of everything. Any other individual hitters in this game standing out to you, even if you're not full stacking, maybe to fill out a lineup?
I really don't. I told you I like those top two guys and, the Tatis and Machado, the obvious choices, but I don't really love these San Diego bats on the whole. So I don't even like them, any one-off cheap bats. I actually prefer the Cubs side of this game. Now you didn't, I think you just touched on it with Cease. He does have control issues at times. And that easily plays into the fact that he may not go deep in this game. It does limit, obviously the amount of pitches he'll throw and how deep he goes. They're not going to be tolerant in the postseason, as we talked about with pitchers. If they are going to be wild, putting guys on base, they're going to get the early hook. So what I was saying, I know AJ doesn't agree, but he does have the potential. If the control is there, he's got tremendous strikeout potential. I think my personal opinion and what the numbers say, we're looking at 1.16 strikeouts per 9 for him, which is slightly better than anyone else here on this slate. So it's really determinant on how good his control is going to be, I think, on how deep he goes in this game. But I actually prefer some of these Cub bats over the San Diego bats, and I think you're getting good leverage on it as well.
Yeah, Steve did say he might make an appearance, but if you were in my text thread with Steve live from Wrigley Field yesterday, not a shock that he's not here early here on Wednesday morning. So, Steve, hope you're feeling all right. Any thoughts on single entry versus multi-entry? I don't see a ton of difference that I would take in terms of strategy here, but maybe you feel differently. Stats? Any thoughts?
I mean, there's always going to be a little bit of a difference. You love and Boynton does as well, and it's important because you guys look at it a lot more than I do, and I love listening to you guys for it. The pinch hit risk when you're making a single entry lineup, I think you have to really look at that a whole lot more than you do if you're building 150. Sure. When I'm building 150, I'm not really putting a lot of weight into pinch hit risk. We're taking a lot of chances. We're obviously diversifying lineups and whatnot. If you're making a single entry, I think that's where you really want to focus on. We can never be perfect with it, but that's where you really want to focus on trying to get yourself away from the highest pinch hit risk options on the slate. So I think you have to pay a lot more attention to that. Outside of that, I mean, it's typically lineup construction, and as we talked about, you can play different. You could play 4-3, 4-4. You could play even 4-2-2s, things like that are all in play here when you get down to a 4-game slate.
Yeah, we did just get the Cubs lineup. It is, I believe, exactly as projected, so no surprises there. And as I mentioned, almost no pinch hit risk at all on this Cubs team, which does make them appealing. Padres not a ton either. We'll see what their lineup looks like. Yesterday, kind of out of necessity, they rolled out a bunch of lefties against the lefty pitcher Matthew Boyd. Obviously, the Cubs know, or at least, the Padres know rather, that it should be Imanaga in. So, assuming they go with guys like O'Hearn, Sheets, Cronenworth, those lefty bats, I would assume then that they're going to get to hit against Imanaga, and then maybe get to play the whole game as well. So, I think this is a pretty safe game to go to if you're worried about the pinch hit risk, especially on the Cubs side, which again does add to their appeal a decent bit for me. Let's go to the second half of the slate. We go to Yankee Stadium. Awesome game yesterday. Yankees obviously facing elimination here. It'll be lefty Carlos Rodon going for the Yankees. Strong season for him. Another good strikeout arm. Another pitcher who can be wild at times, but pretty good matchup here against this Red Sox team. And we are going to see decent ownership on Rodon. A little surprised to see the 25% number. I think his price at 9,300 has a lot to do with the reduced ownership compared to Bybee and Dylan Cease. But if you can afford him, I think Rodon, a pretty strong way to go here. Another game with the wind blowing in at Yankee Stadium. So this will play as a pitcher-friendly park tonight. And Rodon, another guy I think does have duration upside. They will let him go if he looks good. I think Rodon has, in my eyes, the second most upside on the slate after Yamamoto, who we'll talk about when we get to the Dodgers game. So I do like Rodon. Again, you're paying for it. You will have to sacrifice a bat or two, downgrade a bat or two compared to some of the other pitchers to get him, but could definitely prove worth it. I'm in on Rodon. I do like this ready power at the top of the lineup for the Red Sox, or the projected lineup anyway. Bregman, Story, Romy Gonzalez hitting 1, 2, 3, I think is a really fun mini stack if you're not on Carlos Rodon, who does give up, honestly, a fair bit of power to right-handed bats. So with the Cubs side, I'm kind of looking at speed with the Red Sox. I think they're a good candidate to hit for some power here. And I know they did some work yesterday, but the bottom of the Red Sox lineup, pretty weak for Carlos Rodon, who, again, I think is a strong play. Red Sox will go with Brian Bayo, who did struggle for the most part down the stretch. Curious what his prop is. I kind of see a potential quick hook coming for Brian Bayo. Not a great pitcher, and obviously the Red Sox are trying to close out this series. So I could see him coming out of this game relatively early, 7K for Bayo. I've got him pretty far down. I think my sixth favorite pitcher, maybe ahead of Mize and Littell. But as always, stats, I'm guessing you're going to be somewhat high on these Yankees bats for me. They should get both Ben Rice and Jazz Chisholm back in the lineup. They didn't start yesterday. I would be shocked if they weren't in there today against Brian Bayo. Stats, what are you looking at with Red Sox and Yankees here?
Well, I think Jazz Chisholm was shocked he wasn't in there yesterday. So
yes.
that was a bit unusual. Bayo, 4.5 Ks on his props. That's juice to the under, 14.5 outs. Fairly even juice on that. With Rodon, 5.5 Ks for his prop, juiced over 15.5 outs. Fairly evenly spread out there on the juice. So Rodon is going to be one of the top pitchers here for me on the slate, right behind Bybee. I've got him as the third best option here at 9,300. Strong, obviously, K per inning numbers. Better, not quite as good as Cease in that K per inning, but much better on his walk per inning numbers. So that's giving him the nod here on Cease, even though the more expensive price. when you look at the lineups here, you mentioned Boston. You mentioned the speed, and I agree. There is speed in the this line. I think you mentioned the speed. There's also pop though in this line. Obviously, the Yankees have some pop. Have a ton of pop. That's why we like the Yankees quite a bit during the season in GPPs. No matter what the matchup is, they always give you a pretty good chance of going off. But Boston popping that lineup and speed. You know, you got a guy like Story there, who's probably my favorite option on the Red Sox side. I like Rafaela at the 3,300. I think it's a good price for a little combination of speed and power. Bregman as well, obviously came through big last night for them. But the Yankee side, I do like the Yankees. Obviously, Judge, 6K, which is actually kind of cheap for Judge. 4,600 on Stanton. I like that as well. I mean, we're looking for home runs here from this Yankee lineup. Chisholm, who will most likely be in this lineup, high speed and home run possibility. So I do like the Yankee bats quite a bit. All of them here are going to be, to a lesser degree, Grisham, Bellinger, Wells, Volpe. I like all those options for combinations of power and speed here today. But I don't mind taking some of these Red Sox bats either. It's kind of a similar situation. I think they're in a tougher, maybe a little bit tougher spot than those Cubs are, as far as being a contrarian play. But again, you're going to be able to get some leverage against the field here, going against Rodon with this Boston lineup. And remember, these are 2 out of 3, best 2 out of 3 series. You know, I don't care who the pitcher is, who the starting pitcher is. These guys are coming out of the game if they do get in trouble. So any one of these pitchers, who, especially the teams that are down 0-1, do run into a high likelihood, if it's not going well, we could get them out of this game early. So keep that in mind here with the Red Sox, who are up a game. So I don't mind this play at all on the Boston side as taking a contrarian stand here against a Rodon, but I do have him as my third best pitcher. And of course, you know, listen, the Yankee bats, I probably use the Yankees more than most during the season. So I'm going to like him here in this game as well. Probably the second best option overall in a vacuum here to the Dodgers. So I like the bats here on both sides.
Yeah. We do see like the return of, you know, old school small ball baseball in the playoffs. We saw it with the Guardians and to some extent the Tigers yesterday. Don't got to worry about that with the Yankees, right? These guys are not going to be sacrifice bunting, that type of thing. They're going to be swinging for the fences. That's why you're after the Yankees bats. It does look like the Yankees will get similar ownership to the Padres. Of course, they are more expensive, but I certainly lean the Yankees side of that at similar ownership if you can get to them. It sounds like you're similar. And yeah, the Yankees, obviously with all the power, a great team to pick 1 or 2 bats, try to pick out some home runs against Bayo makes sense. I think I know the answer to this question, Stats, but Bayo has pitched well against the Yankees. I assume you're not really concerned about that. I mean, it's a 4-game slate.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't hold too much weight into that. My thing is always, look, the betting markets have this all figured out, so they're going to adjust based on what the record is in the Yankees. So I really rely heavily on betting markets with a lot of different things, DFS being one of them. So just because there's so much information baked into those lines, I think someone else asked about the betting props. I'm going to be looking at those K. I do K props every day. Sometimes I just don't like them. 4-game slate, there's a good chance I won't like any, but I'll be looking at those, and I'll post those in the bet chat over on our Discord.
Makes sense. Let's go to the last game of the slate. It is the Dodgers and the Reds back in Dodgers Stadium. Big night for the Dodgers yesterday, particularly Ohtani with that incredible game. His second home run was just an absolute moonball. I do think he is once again the top overall hitter on this slate, but this Dodgers lineup, man, they've dealt with a lot of health issues, but kind of getting healthy now. We saw Teoscar go yard, Edmund go yard. Obviously, you had the Ohtani double dong. You got Betts, Freeman, Muncy in the middle of this lineup, all healthy. And they get Zach Littell, who has given up, I think he's given up the most home runs, or right up there with any pitcher in baseball. I would assume a potential quick hook for Zach Littell, although Reds don't have a lot of great bullpen arms to go to begin with, which obviously plays into these Dodgers bats being good projected plays, and not a lot of lefties in that pen either for Cincinnati. So a little bit of an extra bump, I think, to these Dodgers lefty bats at the top of the lineup. Going to be the most popular stack on this slate for good reason, right? We mentioned the team total sitting above 5 for the Dodgers. No one else really, they're like a full run clear of the Yankees, which are second. So Dodgers, great way to go. It's hard to get all these bats in there that you want to if you're, somewhat paying up for pitching, which I kind of think you have to do a little bit on this slate. So you'll kind of have to pick and choose a little bit with the Dodgers bats, but clearly a ton of upside here. The best hitting park on the slate, and the Dodgers, obviously, I would say overall are in the best spot. Of course, the market does agree with us on that, so no shock there. But certainly, I think you want exposure to this Dodgers lineup. Dodgers will go with right-hander Yoshi Yamamoto, who's been really, really good all season long. I think kind of a little bit almost of an underrated arm, but he's pitched well in 6 straight starts, has Yamamoto, always up around 100 pitches. I think I would guess he's the highest projected pitcher in terms of the outs prop, at least. I would certainly rank him number 1, and the strikeouts have been there for the most part for Yamamoto too. Good matchup. There's just not a lot of scary bats really at all in this Reds lineup. They got Ellie De La Cruz, but even he is a big strikeout guy. So I think a great spot for Yamamoto. I do have him as, I think, clearly the number one pitching option on the slate. He is priced like it at 9,500. I do prefer him to Rodon if pitching between the two, but someone asked, my preferred pitching combination. It is Yamamoto and Rodon if I can get to it. I'm not playing any Zach Littell here. What are you doing stats with the Reds and the Dodgers?
Yeah, I mean, I've got Yamamoto number 1 as well here. I don't think that's saying much, and it's by far. So he's the number 1 option. Then it's kind of everybody else, and he will be the highest owned pitcher on the slate, I think, obviously. So he's got the best K now. He's got the best props in the market right now. My screen is not coming up, but it was off of memory. He was 6.5 in his K prop. I believe it was 17.5 on his out total. And let's see if I can get it now. Yeah, 17.5 was his out total. Littell, just 3.5 K. I mean, 11.5 outs. You'll never see that in the regular season, but 11.5 pitching outs in the prop market. So I really don't have much interest there. Look, the bats, obviously, the Dodgers went off last night. Their bats are going to be really highly owned. You talk about, strategies, different strategies that you may have if you're building maybe 150 or a single entry build. If you're in a GPP with a single entry build on a four game slate like this, I'd almost just not even want to take the Dodgers, even though I think by far the Dodgers are the best stack here. I think if you're trying to win a GPP, I would just go elsewhere with the ownership on a 4-game slate. I mean, anything, it's baseball. There's no reason that the Dodgers score 3-4 runs here tonight and win the game and really aren't optimal. And, you get a Yankee lineup that scores 8 or 9, and that's the stack you need. So anything can happen, certainly in baseball, and on a 4-game slate when you're going to have such inflated ownership. I'd almost prefer just not doing it. I know it doesn't feel necessarily good. You saw what they did last night. They got a good pitching matchup here again today, but I'd almost feel better about maybe getting off of that. I'd prefer, when I'm going to make a move like that, I actually prefer doing it with the bats as opposed to the pitching, right? So I'd rather get on the chalk pitcher and maybe differ on the bats, I think, because you've got a lot better chance here of just another lineup going off on a game than you necessarily do on Yamamoto. So I think Yamamoto, I would almost lock in here. I think he's clearly the number 1 option on the slate. And while I love Dodger bats, they've got, I think by far they are the best bats on the slate. You can, I mean, if we get like a Kiki Hernandez in there, if he's in, you're going to get a pretty good savings there at 2,400, which I think right now Saber is projecting him to be in the starting lineup. So we may get a couple of cheaper bats with the Dodgers, but for the most part, everything in a vacuum. I love Dodger bats, love them. If I'm playing 150, that's in 150 where I can diversify with my other stacks. that's where I don't mind shoving all in on the Dodgers. If I'm playing one lineup and I can't really get diverse to the point where I'm necessarily going to play all, of course you can't play every combination, but I can play a whole lot of combinations with those Dodgers, different pitchers, different stacks. I'd rather just go against the Dodgers here and that massive ownership that we're going to see on the Dodger bats. So, I mean, it's just a little game theory. You got to be willing to basically punt it off because obviously if the Dodgers do anything respectable, you're not going to win. But if they're bad tonight and you pick the right stack here and you've only got 3 other games to choose from, and we're going to say we're not going to take Cincinnati because we're going to take Yamamoto, you've only got 6 teams here. I like my chances in a single entry to go. Even if you go to the next best team, which looks like the Yankees, you're going to be getting an advantage, I think, over the field in single entry.
Yeah, and with the weaker pitching slate, I do think there's a better chance that a different team does end up getting there other than the Dodgers than there was yesterday. So makes sense there. I don't know if it's a hot take, but I think we could very well see Nick Lodolo thrown from the left side. I wouldn't be shocked if he was in this game the second time through the order, assuming the Dodgers are going to come out with 3 of their top 4 guys in the lineup. That's, of course, Ohtani, Freeman, and Muncy hitting 1, 3, and 4. I wouldn't be shocked to see Lodolo in there potentially in the third inning after if Littell, struggles at all, or even if he doesn't. I just think it would make sense for the Reds to try to get through the second time through the order against Ohtani, Freeman, and Muncy. So Littell off of my radar. Nobody going to have him, so if you've got faith in him for whatever reason, you'll certainly be very, very contrarian and with big leverage with a lot of the field going to Dodgers bats. Lodolo won't be able to pitch too many pitches. He did pitch just a few days ago, not on full rest, but I think he could be in the game early, which obviously plays into not wanting to play Littell. Glad to see you're on the Yamamoto train. Any Reds bats that you're looking at for teams you're not using Yamamoto? And I guess an additional question on top of that, are you willing to play, one-offs against your pitcher on a 4-game playoff slate? Obviously not something we'd like to do on a big slate, but a little bit of a different story in playoff baseball. Just a strategy question there, Stats. Are you willing to play one-offs against your pitcher on a 4-game slate here?
All right. So single entry, 3 max, 20 max, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I think you could start to think about it in 150. I don't do it. But when it gets to 3 games, then yes. 4 games, I don't do it. I mean, that's kind of the cutoff for me. But I just don't see the advantage if you're playing a single entry in doing it. I don't like it. Obviously, when you get to 2 and 3 man, which we will have plenty of those here for the postseason, or 3 games, in those situations, I think you can go ahead and do it. 1 and even 2 sometimes against the pitcher, because like we said, some of these pitchers don't go very deep in these games. If that's the case, of course, you're not going to have the winning pitcher anyway, but there are chances because it just opens up a lot more possibilities for you with combinations. You get a lot of low scoring games, and it doesn't really take much. You get 5-10 points out of a batter. That may be good enough for you. So yes, in this case today, though, no, I would not do it.
I agree with you. I do, we'll get to 2 3-gamers where you can certainly and probably do want to consider that. But on this particular 4-game slate, not something I'm really looking to do, especially just playing a few lineups. 150 could be a different story, but I don't think it's quite small enough slate to quite get there today on playing. Yeah, I mean, listen, it could work, obviously. Volpe.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But if we're talking about just in general, I don't think it's the very best strategy. Let's go back over our favorite pitching plays on this slate. I see 4 pitchers. It is the highest priced 4 pitchers on the slate, and I do think ownership will reflect that as well. Okay, they've got Sabres got 5 pitchers getting ownership. Looks like Mize going to get a decent amount too. But for me, I kind of want these top 4 guys: Yamamoto, Bibee, Cease, Rodon. I do think it's pretty close between these guys. I think Yamamoto is clearly the best option. Sounds like you agree. My preferred combination is Rodon, Yamamoto. You can fit those guys in with decent bats, I think. So that's my preferred pitching combination. But Bibee and Cease, not too far behind for me. What's your preferred pitching combination on the slate stats?
Yeah, like I said, I think Yamamoto's kind of a lock button play here tonight. And then I would go with Bibee as my second choice. So I think that's my favorite pitching combo. Rodon's not far behind there, and Cease would be behind that. But yeah, that's the combo I would go with.
Yeah, in terms of relievers go, again, when we get to 2-3 game slates, we will get to some slates where relief pitchers do come into play, even on a main slate. Obviously, showdown relievers very much in play. But I'm not playing relievers on the 4-game main slate. I'm guessing you're the same stats.
Yeah, I won't be playing any relievers. Like I said, it's not that these things never happen. We're just trying to play the probabilities.
Yep, I'm with you there. Stacks, again, you don't have to stack on a shorter slate, but if you are, which couple of stacks do you think are the strongest plays here, stats?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Dodgers are the strongest play here, and I like the Yankees as the number 2. I think if you want to get a little contrarian, to me, I think it's the Cubs. So I would take the Cubs here as a contrarian play. If I was playing single entry, I think that's the way I would go. I would probably do like a Yankee Cub stack, or even if you wanted to play 3 stacks, basically played like 3 mini stacks. I think you could get away with that as well. I think I would probably go towards Yankees, Cubs, and then maybe pick some spots in that Detroit Cleveland game, something like that on the Cleveland side. But yeah, that's probably my favorite contrarian play would be Yankee Cubs. Dodgers, of course, are the best stack here on the slate.
Yeah, I have the same answer. No surprise on a 4-game slate. Dodgers, Yankees, and Cubs, the 3 kind of full 5-man stacks that I'm looking at. We'll throw in a quick pick 6 here. Let's get rid of that and pull up pick 6. Where do you want to start on the pick 6 for this playoff slate stats? Anything standing out to you today?
I give it first. I'm going to go Austin Wells here over a half hits for Austin Wells.
Austin Wells to record a hit. Let me pull up Littell. I kind of want to bet under on his outs if possible. It is not. I actually don't like the hits or earned runs allowed that much, just because I think he could get in a very early hook before that even occurs, even if he's pitching well. So I guess I'll pass on the Littell props. We both like Yamamoto. You like this outs prop, 17.5? I think he's fairly likely to go deep into the game. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do like that, especially with them being up a game. I think he gets a little deeper into that game. He should pitch well enough to get deep, and I think a lot of things are in his favor there.
Yeah, with you. So we got Wells over on the hits, Yamamoto over on the outs. Feels a little chalky chasing the Ohtani hits, runs, RBIs 2.5, but man,
he is good.
Yeah, can we throw in the Ohtani over 2.5? I mean,
well, this is it. Chunk the deuce there. He's got an interesting one. You see the comment there with Ohtani walk, which is not. I like his logic there.
Me too.
Certainly going to pitch around him. Let's throw that in, and we'll give Chunk the credit if we can hit this one.
All right, good. Ohtani to record a walk. That's 3 of the 6. Where do you want to go next?
I was looking at Pete Crow Armstrong hits. I'll take his over. I'm gonna go with a hit for PCA here today.
All right, 0.9x on the PCA hit. Need 2 more here. We'll see if anyone's nothing in chat for the suggestions. Who else are we looking at on this?
I like Judge hit run RBI, his over here today. Nice. I'm going to take that one over 1.5. Yeah,
that seems very strong. I know some people concerned about Judge's postseason struggles, but it's still Aaron Judge. Not too worried about.
By the way, that is the most nonsense thing ever, especially in baseball. When I hear that, Barry Bonds couldn't hit in the postseason either until he dominated this year. They didn't win. Alex Rodriguez was a terrible postseason player until he was going to be the MVP in 2004 against Boston, and they blow that series. Like, it's baseball. You go through 2-3 week slumps all the time. If they happen in October, you look like an idiot. So, and you don't typically get all that many chances to play in October for most of these players. So I don't buy into the whole not hitting in October thing.
I'm with you there. My final one, I like this over 1.5 earned runs allowed for Bayo. Red Sox obviously did win yesterday, which I think should increase his, duration a little bit. And both of us do like the Yankees. Are you okay with Bayo over 1.5 earned runs?
I like it.
All right. We'll throw that in there. So we have Bayo, 2+ earned runs allowed, Aaron Judge, 2+ hits, runs, RBIs, PCA, and Austin Wells 3-homer to hit, Yamamoto to get 17.5 outs, and Ohtani to record a walk. That's a pick 6 for today, and that's this playoff baseball slate. Should be another awesome day of baseball. I know everybody going to enjoy the games today. Appreciate everybody watching. Hit the like button on your way out if you haven't yet done so. Not sure if we'll have a show tomorrow. We'll have an announcement. I'll post on X if we do, depending on, I think, partly how these games go. Obviously, potentially, no baseball tomorrow. We'll see how these games go, but pay attention for that. Maybe we'll have a show tomorrow, and yeah, that'll do it. Good luck to everybody in your lineups. Appreciate you all supporting the show. And for today, that'll be it. For Stats, I'm DC. We're out of here.